And we're live.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the Drummers Education Connection, episode 16. Boy, we have more episodes than Star Wars, man. Women in Drums Through Time with Kelli Rae Tubbs. Um, we really appreciate all of you watching us and the folks that have Aquarian for supporting us, for streaming us on their platforms. And so you can see us on our Facebook group, which is just for drum teachers. And then you can also check us out on our YouTube channel, and the whole world can see us there. So feel free to comment if you have any questions for Kelli or any of the panel. Just type in, and we'll try to address your questions as best as we possibly can. And so, Bart, we need a drum roll. Can you do a drum roll?
I can do a drum roll. I gotta
All right,
get my keyboard. I gotta get my keyboard out of the way, though. How was that?
Welcome to Kelli Rae Tubbs. Kelli is a professional working drummer. She's out of Minnesota. To me, Kelli, well, she's not only a great friend of mine, but I have a great respect for her as a drummer. She's a killer drummer, a working drummer in all styles. She can play it all. She was at my studio one time and we traded fours, but I was like, man, she's got chops. Oh my God. So Kelli is really an expert, in my opinion, and you're becoming like a celebrity in the evolution of the drum set and the vintage drum world. And you know, we really need that. We need leading historians like you, Kelli, you know, so we can connect to our instrument. And that's a lot that we could talk about, like the importance of drumming. Or importance of the evolution of drumming. I know you're working on, you're a co-author with our great friend and buddy Daniel Glass, yes, on a collection of photographs, over 400 photographs of drummers dating back to 1900.
Yeah,
you'll find a lot of women drummers.
Yeah.
Wow. And so you're going to share a lot of photos with us from that era and have a lot of interesting photos for us. Kelli has a great resume. She was the house percussionist at the Smoky Mountain Opry,
yes,
Tennessee.
I love it. It's like there's no better job to have than being able to go out to the stable on intermission and chat with the camels in the burrow. You're surrounded by all these lights and special effects and fog machines and snow machines and a moving band cart that goes 25 feet up and down stage, and everything. 4 foot wide mirror ball, portable skating rink. Although I never got to see that in action, But then to say, oh, I'll just go to the stable, it's just through that door off the side of the stage wings and go pet the camels for a little while. Yeah.
How cool.
Camels probably hang out at the water cooler.
Yeah, exactly. Well, talking about Kelli's resume, I could take the whole hour here and just talk about Kelli's resume. But I know that you're a judge on the Hit Like a Girl contest. I know that you've been awarded a lot of grants and fellowships on drum history. I know you have your videos with William Ludwig on drum history, and and I just think you're an inspiration to women drummers. And, about half of my students are women. And
mine too.
Surprisingly, when they come to me for lessons, they tell me that their friends and family are surprised that they're drumming. And I say, why? And they'll say, because I'm a woman. And I said, well, what does that have to do with anything? And they're like, yeah, right. What does that have to do with anything? So
yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on all that?
With anything? Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on that. A lifetime of thoughts on that. But I just in the way that you said that, not to be and I don't want to like pick on you or something, but you said that you hope I'm an inspiration to women drummers. I just want to be an inspiration to drummers. I don't want to be seen as a woman drummer. I'm just a drummer.
You are. We're all guys, so you did it. We're inspired.
It's like the way that I see this play out. You would never go to a nightclub and say, "Oh, look, a boy trumpet player."
Right.
You would never
Right.
ever say that. And
Yeah.
let alone the fact that any man who's got any guts would never stand for being called a boy.
Right.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
right.
it's just a matter of really just taking a moment to think about the words that you're actually saying, because to somebody they really do mean a difference. Whether it's somebody who feels that they're being minimalized because they're considered a girl, or whether it is somebody who is inspired by the fact that they can see something that they can do. So it can go either way. Your language really makes such a big difference, and it's such a little thing to pay attention to. But it just comes out so naturally. We say it before we think about it.
There it is. There it is.
Totally agree with you, Kelly.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, it's great you're keeping everyone aware of this, and I think it's fantastic. So I have three counterparts here at DEC, the Drummers Education Connection: Jeremy Steinkohler, Bart Robley, and the amazing Chip Ritter.
Hi guys, how's everybody doing today?
How's it going, guys?
Good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you back,
Kelly,
Chip.
thanks for showing up. Thanks for doing this show with us.
Oh, I'm so happy to do it. I really am.
So, Kelly, I have a question or a comment, and in regards to what you just said. I had a drum student a number of years ago, and she was a lady. Her and her husband lived in a very well-to-do area, and she was her husband was a doctor, and she came to me. She wanted to take drum lessons. I was like, oh, fantastic! And like Rick said, I have probably about half of my students are female, right? And anyway, this particular lady came in and she wanted to learn. And so we started on some rudiments and some drum set grooves. And she started talking about wanting to buy a drum set. And one day she came into her lesson and she was really upset. And she goes, I think this month is going to be my last month of lessons. I was like, well, why is that? You're doing really good. And she said, well, my husband doesn't want me to play drums. He wants me to play piano. And I said, well, you can do both, because they serve one another. And I tried to get into it a little bit, a piano's a percussion instrument. We go into this whole thing. She goes, yeah, he's just not having it with me playing drums. And I didn't want to get personal. I was like, well, why? It's, and she goes, well, because I'm a woman. He doesn't think it's feminine. And I was so blown away by that. I didn't know what to say, and anyway, she stuck around for a few more months and everything, but eventually she dropped off and we lost contact. This was years ago. What would you say to that? How do you, I don't want to start off with something weird, right out of the gates, but what do you say to that? How do you deal with that?
It's so they're that kind of negative attention. I guess that's maybe the best way to put it, or the pressure.
Right.
To do something that people in general terms think is inappropriate, even though it isn't.
Right.
I was mentioning this to somebody earlier today that there were societies back before Common Era, so 3,000 years ago, and the women were the only drummers in that society. They were the ones who could give birth, and so they were considered sacred beings. And no guys got to play drums. And of course, they didn't understand the science to understand that they were 50% of that quotient of having a baby, right? But they didn't know, and they could have been playing drums the whole time. But
it's how it works.
Yeah. And so it's just a matter of societal pressures. And in that case, none of the guys could play. So, but times have changed, and there's still the perception, though, that it's not ladylike to play, or who knows what. Or just because it's uncommon, in a related. So I'm not sure that I have an answer on what you would say, but that feeling is out there, and everybody who is a female, whether they're a girl drummer or a woman drummer today, they kind of still have a lot of that lingering opinion. It's not just because it's opinion doesn't mean it's true.
Right.
Doesn't
Yeah.
mean it should be followed.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit of an upstream battle sometimes.
That's too bad. I mean, there's so many amazing women drummers. I mean, a lot of times the first one I think a lot of people point to, of course, is Sheila E. I mean, but you look through history, Karen Carpenter, Cindy Blackman. There's so many. I have a friend, an acquaintance, I should say, out here. She's a mutual friend of a guy that I work with, Sam. Michelle Mangione, just an amazing, amazing drummer. And the thought process that, you're a woman doesn't even come into it, And again, I think it's just because I'm around it so much and I have so many female students, So,
well, I got to tell you that it was in the last 5 years. I don't know exactly how far back, 3 to 4 years, I went into a drum shop and the person behind the counter didn't ask me. They came in. When I came in, they assumed I was shopping for myself and not for my husband, my boyfriend, or my child.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That was the first time in my entire career of playing that they assumed I was there for me.
Right.
That's excellent.
Nice.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was
Should be.
yeah, that's how it should be. Same thing when I went to the Chicago Drum Show. And if you've ever been there, oh my gosh, it's an adventure of looking at an entire, basically a hockey floor space of vendors that each have vintage drums and parts, or some other drumming and percussive thing that they have going on. Most of those are independent vendors, but some drum shops and some boutique players or makers, I should say.
Right.
And there was a guy there. I went past his booth, and his name is Iggy. So hi, Iggy. I walked past, and he said, "Is there anything special you're looking for?" And I actually turned around to see who it was he was talking to, because because nobody had ever, addressed me.
Wow.
I turned
That's
around, I
great.
saw that nobody was there, and I realized he was talking with me, right? And
That's
it was
cool.
it's great because it blew me away. I will not ever forget that feeling. But again, why it took 40 years for that to happen is eye-opening.
So it took you by surprise, is what you're saying. It took you by surprise.
Well, we're making progress now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And the next day, I walked by his booth and he addressed me by my name.
That's great.
Yeah, I will never forget that.
Way to go, Iggy.
I know. Iggy is my hero.
Yeah.
Hey, being a drum historian, have you ever heard of a piece of music? I think it was in 1963. It was put about by Ludwig Drum Company called the Red Panthers.
I don't know that off the top of my head. No.
It's just a drum march. It's a top line, bottom line. And I have a student, little young guy. His name's Joseph, and his mom's name is Sai, and they're from China. And very broken English. It's really hard to communicate,
Oh, yeah.
And she brought him in for drum lessons, and he's been taking drum lessons with me for a while. Joseph has been, and man, he's really getting to be a great drummer. Well, she's a drummer as well. Mom is,
Cool.
but she wants him to come to me instead of teaching him himself. Anyway, I had the Red Panthers there one day, and it was on the music stand, and she picked up a pair of sticks, and we played it. And she played bottom line, I played top line, and man, she was awesome, and it was so great.
Love it.
It was so much fun.
Fantastic.
Oh, it's fantastic, And we have this it's hard to communicate. It's really hard to communicate because the English is so broken, but we can read music. And so we play this piece of music together, and we totally speak that language. And just kind of a fun little story I wanted to tell.
That's
the
awesome
universal
story.
language.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's an awesome story.
Yeah.
You should find somebody who is a Chinese drummer and get a couple of phrases that would be common phrases of feedback. I mean, here's, this is all, this forum is about educating drummer educators, right?
Yep.
Get some common phrases so that you can at least point to them in the language that comes firsthand to him.
I can say the sticking of a paradiddle in Chinese.
Let's hear it. What is it?
Yo show yo yo show yo show show.
That is awesome.
Whoa.
Ah, so that was
I'm writing that down.
See?
yeah. And then in Taiwanese it's Phi Chai Phi Phi Chai Phi Chai Chai, and people are going to type, "You're messed it up," but I tried.
That is awesome.
So Kelli,
yeah.
I'm really glad you brought up, or Bart, you brought up this first question about gender bias in drumming, and it speaks to a larger issue in our society, obviously, that girls and women face all the time still, even though that we've made lots of progress, and in certain areas it's super progressive and equality and understanding. But what I know that I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, and everyone's very woke here and liberal and tolerant, but I know in lots of places in the country it's not the same as it is here. And so I'm sure that girls and women, probably even more women than girls, I would imagine, because they're adults, and girls, well, that's just something they're trying, but for women it's like that's threatening to some guys, maybe, that they're playing the drums, like to this Yahoo who was telling his wife that he didn't want her to play, as if he could have some sovereign control over her. What advice do you have to women and girls who are playing, who maybe think they might want to play but are a little bit afraid to?
Oh, I would love for them to try anything, try everything.
Right.
Find out, well, I guess one of the most important things is to find a teacher who is supportive, because if you have a teacher who has that bias at all, it's going to be reflected in how they teach you. They're not going to teach you the same to the same level of consistency and musicality. They're not going to teach you to the as technical of things as like how to tune your drums, right? They're not going to go there because you're not really real. So find somebody who is really invested in you as a student. And that's hard to do when you don't have a good recommendation. So it can be really a hard path to try to follow when you don't know who to follow. It's kind of like picking out of college if your parents have never been to college and don't know what they might want to look for in something like that.
Right.
So
great advice.
I was very fortunate. When I started in band in 7th and 8th grades, the band director was a teacher, or was a drummer, professional drummer. And so after school every Wednesday, I had lessons from him. And it was, I didn't realize until a couple of years ago how much he personally invested in me, because we were on school property using school instruments. And after about the second week, he said, "You know what, I really probably can't take your money." He says, "I still want to continue teaching you, but I probably can't take your money because this isn't my stuff. This isn't my property, but keep coming." And it's like, he gave me lessons for 2 years.
Wow.
That's a
awesome.
huge investment. There was never any bias from him. I was, I was completely gung ho, and he was too.
What was his name?
His name is Michael Raskovich.
Go, Michael. Go, Michael.
Michael, you made a difference, Michael.
I know every time there's one of those annual, like, who's an important mentor in your life, and I always reach out and
nice.
Remember to thank him about that, because I didn't understand literally until a couple of years ago what kind of personal investment he had made in me and my progress and my ability, and he was just such a great influence for me.
Beautiful.
So, yeah,
That's awesome.
So beautiful.
All right.
Well, Kelli, you have so much knowledge about the evolution of the drum and drum set, and I just wanted, I know it's an important thing for us to understand, where our instrument came from, but I wanted to ask you, why the evolution of drums?
well,
why the history?
Why, for like my own interest in it, or why people should be interested in it?
Both.
both.
Absolutely both. Yeah.
My own personal interest came about when I decided to start a jazz band, a big band. And I realized that I would need to get a library of about 200 tunes at about $40 a crack. For used charts is $8,000. I didn't like that math for an investment, so I decided to find I decided to go with a dance orchestra, which is a 10-piece, and the music is from the teens and 20s.
Oh.
And much more affordable. And the music there, the sheet music, was so different by comparison to modern, even big band arrangements from the 70s. So completely different. The way that the music is written, the way that the horn parts are written, for all of the texture that they have. The saxophonists are doubling on flutes or doubling on clarinets. The trumpets and trombones are using mutes like a straight mute, a cup mute, a harmon mute, a bucket mute, a hat. They are using plungers. They're using something called a mega mute, which doesn't even exist anymore. There were parts for C melody saxophone. It's like, what is this? So it just brought up a whole bunch of questions and made me realize there is so much more to music, to American music, to just early 20th century music that I had no clue about. And so I just got terrifically interested in that. And also the way then that music history intersected with my family history, because I was totally interested in genealogy, and I realized, like, oh, my great grandfather was a few years older than Mozart. And so, Mozart used to seem like so far in the past that it wasn't relevant. It was like, but wait, my grandfather is relevant. So it's like, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here. So those two things and put together really made it helped me understand and helped me put into perspective the history of music and what it means to me and what it means to all of us, really. So, and I think it's important for other people to understand a little bit about their music history, because I believe it informs how they play. So if you have never studied, this particular style, and this other next style was a derivative of the first one, your ability to play that second one with the same sort of mindset and authenticity, I think, is challenged.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that, a lot of my students that come to me that are, rock students, they don't want to learn how to swing or to play jazz or anything like that. And what was before rock and roll, everybody's playing jazz. You listen to early heavy metal records, you listen to the first Black Sabbath record, Fairies Wear Boots is a jazz tune, and if you can't swing, you're cutting your options of what you can do in half.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, you just are, because music does one of two things, right? It either drives or it swings. It does one of those two things: odd time signature, different styles, everything like that. That's what it does. So, you got to understand it, I think, even if you're not like the greatest jazz player in the world, having a knowledge of it and knowing where it came from and knowing some of the background is going to make you a better rock drummer.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Everything serves everything else.
Yeah.
The bottom line.
So
actually, you mentioned, Rick, that I've got some grant projects going on, and that's true. And one of those is I don't really have a foundation in progressive rock. And so one of the grants that I have right now is studying progressive rock. I'm actually studying with Brandon Koo. So Brandon, if you're out there listening,
Yay, Brandon,
who's also an Aquarian player, right?
Yeah, Brandon.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the grant has paid for some lessons with Brandon to help me get some fundamentals in that style. They also paid for those heads back there.
What's the beauty?
Yeah, it is. I've got a 10-piece Thomas set, and so part of the grant money went to reheading the whole set, which is a task I have yet to do. But
Studio X looks like.
To-do list.
Yeah.
Or is that a super kick?
Super
It
kick.
is a super kick.
Super kick too.
Super kick. I've got
Yeah.
reflectors on the top, and so it's going to be
Or the super
very
kick.
interesting. Yeah.
Oh,
Wearing drum heads.
oh, beautiful. So Kelly, you have some photos
I do.
that you wanted to share with us.
I
I know you have your picture book that you're working on with Daniel Glass.
Yes.
All about the history and how did that all come about?
Oh, it's funny. You know, I had as part of my learning about that music, that old 19 teens and 20s jazz music, I didn't understand how to play the music authentically. The sheet music made no sense to me because it's either all quarter notes for the whole song, or it's 5-stroke rolls for the whole song, and it's like, I'm clearly missing something here. You know, I don't understand. So I was buying photos and method books and books on orchestration of that were written by the people who were writing these arrangements of all these early jazz tunes, trying to find a clue in any way that I could about how to authentically play that music. And in the meanwhile, I was buying photos to look at their gear to see if that was maybe a clue or something. So I had a lesson as a part of a different grant project with Daniel Glass, and I'm showing him in this lesson. I'm showing him this photo. Let me put something in my hand. It's like, all right, you know, what's this photo? What is this thing on this photo? And he's like, well, I've never seen one of those before. It's like, oh, all right, well, we'll figure that out. Well, how about this thing? Why is this like this? And I'm showing him another photo and this other photo. And he's like, well, show me the first one again. And show me the second one. And the first one? No, the other? How many of these do you have? And I said, you know, with drummers in them, I don't know, 50, 60, we need to write a book about this. So
Cool. Fantastic.
Awesome.
Yeah. And
Yes.
from that time, then it's grown from 50 pictures. I was spot on with that estimate to about 400.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, exciting.
Is the book, it's in progress now?
It is in progress. We've been working on it for a while, and you know, I keep finding really cool pictures, and so there's more work to do with every picture that I get, because we're not only looking at cool gear and cool gigs, but you know, just the challenges of playing drums at that time.
Right.
Because you know, you're working with calfskin heads, and you're in a parade, and it's 20 degrees or it's raining, and what do you do with your calfskin at that point? And
The mega mute.
yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, and what do you do? And it's so great. And there are I'm having such a great time putting some of the images together, because it's like I'm creating my own Easter eggs for myself. You know, there's
Kelly, can we see some of those images?
I think I have one of those images with me. I have the presentation to show you just a few images from there.
Oh, okay.
But they don't show most of those. There's one photo that will appear in the book, and the others are from different eras. But sorry, where was I at with that? So the Easter eggs. So it's like, you know, one of my earliest influences was Billy Cobham. And so I have a picture of some Panamanian drummers. And another is like my mom's hometown. And there's an image from there that actually relates to a little bit in a sideways way to the book. And there's a picture of the Royal Hawaiian Community Band. And of course, Daniel grew up in Honolulu. So there's a little Easter egg there. So it's really fun, kind of
Is there,
you know, paying homage. It's not really like an Easter egg, but it's paying homage to the people and the things who have been important to us in our lives.
Kelly, is there a working title? Once it's out, where can we find it?
It is called The Postcard Project, A Snapshot of Drumming Life, 1900 to 1930.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And do you have a publisher? Where can we find it?
We are still working on that, whether we want to have that self-publish or go through a publishing house. So that's a decision for later.
The postcard project. I'm writing that down.
I like that. That is really cool. I am too.
Cool.
So I'm going to switch screens and go to a presentation. We'll see if this works well or works at all. And let me get into presentation mode here.
Jacob
Yeah.
says hi to
So
everybody on
go.
Facebook. Hey,
Hey,
look at
Jacob.
that.
So check this out. So as I was saying before, you know, women have been drummers for a very long time, and it's just understanding the change in mindset. You know, understanding that in these cultures, women were drummers, and I have to say that these photos are compliments of Glenn Velez. That he did a presentation at PASIC a long time ago, and these were a part of his presentation. He had all sorts of Egyptian carvings into buildings, like you see the woman on the left playing the hand drum there. She's carved right into the building, whereas the one on the right is actually a piece of art that was on a wall.
Wow.
But yeah, it's just amazing. These women have been drummers for so long, and people just don't know about it. And I think a lot of times in cultures, like in the United States, in the 19 teens and 20s, where women didn't have the right to vote, they didn't have the right to drive, they didn't have the right to smoke in public or to drink in public. And so if you're unimportant, why would somebody document you? So
Wow.
yeah, and that comes that same thing is going to be true for any part of society who is marginalized.
Absolutely.
If you're not considered important, you will not be documented. So it's so the images of women drummers, and you know, they're out there. It's just you have to dig a little harder to find them. So here's I just made a little timeline just to look through and show examples of women and how women were drumming and on what they were drumming. So here's an image from 1861. This young lady had actually been a child slave and was adopted by a well-to-do family out in Boston. And so it's a studio photo. And again, you have to think about the fact that at that time, people didn't have cameras. The general public didn't have cameras. That explosion of people being able to take candid photos happened a little bit later. So, but she is just a fantastic example. I know that her hand position looks a little funky compared to today's hand position, but I tell you that she is spot on with the way that people were trained back in that day. That right hand, you see her thumb?
Yeah, I was noticing.
I was just looking at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks so weird to us now, but as late as 1896, I think, in the imperial drum method, that was still being taught, and that same kind of two fingers over, which isn't very far from our current traditional grip. It's a little bit different, but that right hand especially, it wasn't an up and down motion with the wrist, it was a rotational motion. So you would
like that,
like a thing like that.
Yeah, like that.
Wow. Yeah.
And
how did the left stick sit? Because the left stick, it looks like she's holding up here instead of letting it sit on here. It's up. It maybe just her hand position in the picture.
They oftentimes were resting their hands on the shells or on the counter hoops. So it's weird. It depends on just exactly where the drums were sitting. So,
really?
But she's amazing. She's got great form.
It's a great picture.
Yeah,
that's cool.
It's a fantastic photo, and I love, you know, it's just watching as these photos go through, you'll be able to see how the tensioning systems have changed through time too. You know, so she's got rope because that's what there was, but not too many decades after that, Prussian style drums would come around where metal tension systems were developed. So we go into the mid 1600s, and this is a picture of Anna Glud. We don't have a photo of her in uniform, but she served as a drummer boy, quote unquote, under the alias Tom Hundley. And it was a situation where her father, her father and mother split because of their differing views of the Civil War and the different views on slavery. So she was left to be raised by her father, and her father served in the Union Army, and he had nowhere else to put his daughter. And so she came along. She was incognito. They dressed her as a boy. They cut her hair, and she drummed for 2 years, and obviously made it through to be an older woman.
We still see the original picture,
Yeah.
Kelly.
Yeah, we still seeing the same picture,
Oh,
Kelly.
sorry. Oh, let's see. I bet I have to. Did that help?
No.
No. Okay. Let me.
I'm actually monitoring the Facebook for questions right now.
Okay. Yeah, you do that while I figure out how to change the screen here.
I tell you what, that first picture was just it's just amazing, and I just feel that it's just so great that you have that and we get to share it, and she sure is important to us.
That's good.
Where are you finding some of these pictures? Just out of curiosity, I mean, just digging through. Where are you finding some of them in your?
I find them in antique stores and on
Really?
eBay and yeah, all sorts of places. So I just kind of keep looking. So I'm going to see. I'm going to leave it like that and see if you can.
We see her.
Okay.
Mid 1600s
Civil War.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
and then there's a little newspaper article right next to that. And newspapers, that's another big source for me. Another Wisconsin drummer, and it was so interesting because she served in the Civil War for 2 years as a drummer, and then after the Civil War, she wanted to re-enlist, and so she went to to be enlisted, to re-enlist in the service, and was immediately put in jail because they felt that she had been impersonating a soldier. So
Really?
yeah.
Ah.
It's crazy. So now if I
Yeah.
do that, do you see my screen
Yep.
change?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. So women were drumming throughout this whole time period, and just choosing select moments. So in the late 1800s, early 1900s, Clara Schumann, who was she is still considered today one of the top 10 women composers of all time. Her husband was Robert Schumann, who was also a classical composer. She would take orchestras of women only and tour Europe and the United States extensively. They were very popular, very widely received. And so, you had a job working for her. And that's one of the many, many opportunities women had as touring drummers. We go next into the early 1900s when trap drumming started to be more prominent.
Yeah.
Check her out. So here's a newspaper article from
Cool.
St. Louis, and you can see, that is her drum set. If you can see my cursor on the screen.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that is her drum set: a bass drum and a pedal cymbal, and then the other accoutrements of a trap drummer. And the title on this article is like, St. Louis has the only female trap drummer. Well, that wasn't true.
Right.
Yeah.
They but she was a union member, which is great. So
Just as a side note to our viewers, where did the term trap drummer come from, and what was their job as a touring trap drummer, or as a trap drummer? What was it?
Many different things, but you can see all of the sound effects that she has. So a trap drummer might be hired by a silent film theater, a moving picture theater, or a circus, a vaudeville show, any combination of those kinds of things, or might be just in a like a regular orchestra presenting music. So just a big variation of what they would do.
Outstanding.
You can see these two want ads here. One, the top one is from 1905. It's a woman trap drummer looking for work, and the one is below that is from 1911, where they are the theater is specifically looking for a woman trap drummer to play in their movie theater. So.
Nice.
That is so cool. Kelli, on the right, what can you go over what some of those instruments might be? I mean, we have a tambourine and a triangle, and then all the other stuff below that on the other side.
Sure. So we've got like handheld jingle bells here and a slapstick, and of course her bass drum and pedal cymbal with that kind of half moon. There is the piece of metal that strikes the pedal cymbal when you strike when you use the bass drum pedal. And sleigh bells. Those are paddle castanets, timpani, clog mallets. That is a whistle of some flavor. That's a steamboat whistle. Tambourine, triangle, sandpaper blocks.
Oh yeah.
This one here, that's question for me. I think that's another whistle, like a duck call, perhaps. Horse's hooves. Another
cool.
whistle. A ratchet, which back at that time was called a police rattle. And there's a story behind it. Actually, one of the videos in my sound effects series on my YouTube channel talks all about the police rattle. So, and then this bottom one is a train imitation.
Kelli, how can we find your YouTube channel since you mentioned it?
It is youtube.com/Kelli Rae Tubbs. It doesn't get much easier than that. If you can spell my name, you can get there.
Awesome.
Are your videos with William Ludwig on there too? I remember seeing them where you go over you demonstrate a gunshot.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was loud.
how they did a gunshot sound for silent movies, and then also a train. Like they had a whole box that made a train sound.
Yes, yeah, that is one of my favorite videos out of that whole series of sound effects. I've got 8 videos in that series and continuing that as funding permits. But this is a very different style of train effect right here at the bottom. So
cool. Really fascinating.
Oh,
that's fascinating. That is fun. Really cool.
Yeah, and she there's I mean, her life story, I found out, I was trying to learn more about her because I really like to do a deep dive on small subjects, and found out that Belle Parker was actually a stage name. It wasn't even her real name, which was making it more difficult to find out about her. But there was an attempt on her life by her estranged husband, and so that hit the newspapers, and from that I was able to find other information that led to another article that led to another, and finally found her real name and her real life.
So Kelli, for every one of these photos that you come across, you end up doing like a deep dive, researching the background and finding and connecting the dots. Yeah.
I do my best, yeah, and sometimes, sometimes it's really interesting and disappointing. Like this one, there's a murder attempt and a suicide attempt associated with that. Another, you find out that like the first picture that I showed to Daniel was a guy named Judson Courtwright. So sometimes I know their names, sometimes I don't when I go into it. And I found out that he was a wallpaper hanger, but he clearly played music. I love being able to find the backstories on the instruments that I own and the photos as best I can. And sometimes you get lucky, and sometimes you will never know.
Strike out, right?
Yeah.
But it's
So
always
cool.
in the back of my mind. It's like, how could I connect this person to this other thing or this area or where it came from? And I am always looking, especially at community band photos from 100 years ago, 120 years ago, and like looking for a face that looks familiar, because sometime I'm going to put some mystery together, and it's going to be awesome when I do. In the meanwhile, it's like I just make progress on the things that I can make progress on.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
That is so cool. That is just outstanding.
it is fun.
You must have a huge collection of instruments, I would assume.
Is 18 drum sets too many?
Oh my
Oh my
God.
No.
Wow. No kidding.
Wow.
Wow.
No kidding. Yeah, I use them for different purposes. For my own playing, and this is maybe this is either an indicator of I'm enlightened and feel different things, or that I'm a limited player and can't imagine how to get the sounds that I want out of this drum set for all styles. But so it could go either way. For jazz, I've got a round badge Gretsch set, and I like to play that when I'm driving a big band or when I'm playing combo things. But I've got a cocktail kit that I use doing musical theater things sometimes if I also have to play timpani and xylophone on the same book. And I've got my workhorse, which is a Yamaha Maple Custom. I've got this huge Tama set, which is beautiful.
I have a Yamaha.
I know that set. Yep.
Yeah, the huge, shocking pink glass glitter sets, and and then I've got I take sets out and do like to festivals and do little 5-minute drum lessons with whoever wants to do. So I've got a child size set for that. So they're not all for me, but they are all for a purpose in mind as far as I'm concerned. So.
That is outstanding. That is
It's
outstanding.
fun. It's fun. So let me get to this next picture. There's this next picture actually has a drummer who we should all know, and again, just like everything else, everything has kind of come to light for me in the last 5 or 6 years or so. So the drummer sitting there on the left, this is a photo from about 1923, and drum sets haven't changed much from that photo with Belle Parker and that little kind of cartoon drawn image. It's a bass drum, a snare drum. She's got a wood block. She's got one cymbal here that is mounted onto the counter hoop, right? And that drummer, about 13 years old, that's Viola Smith.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Did she recently pass?
Yep.
She did. It was in November, October or November.
How old was she there?
She would have been 108, so 107.
No. In this picture,
she's about 13.
Wow.
Yeah.
No kidding. That is awesome.
But she lived that long, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously, drumming is good for your health.
That's right. That's right. Most people don't understand. She had a career that lasted 5 decades. She was playing professionally when she was in school. She was on tour as a teen, I think, with the Major Bowes Orchestra, Major Bowes Amateur Hour, which is kind of like the Gong Show. They would have a talent contest, and then that winner would go around and tour for the next 6 or 7 days until the next contest. And so she toured all over the United States with that and with her own family band. And then after that, she was the president of the group called the Coquettes. And that's when if you see that video with her playing the song Snake Charmer.
Yeah.
Where she's just killing. She's such a great showman, and her sister Mildred is the saxophonist sitting closest to her in those videos.
That is so awesome, man.
Yeah, it is. And then she went on to play in she was part of the original Broadway cast of the show Cabaret in the 70s. So she was a Tony winning, part of a Tony winning presentation. So many things. But yeah, her set here is just amazing. I got to spend a couple of afternoons with her, and we had some I took some of those old photos that I've got, and I was showing her, does this look familiar? And sometimes like, nah, not so much. And then sometimes she'd look at a picture, she says, oh, I had something just like this. It's like, tell me about it. How often do you have the opportunity to talk to somebody who played equipment from the 1920s and 30s?
No kidding.
No
That's
kidding.
great.
That was
something else, man. That is so cool.
So here we're going to go. And okay, so I know that it sounds really funny, but in 1938, I find some of the best information can come from these old animated photos, quality animated photos. So we're looking at symbol stuff here. And Dopey's got this killer drum set here. He's got this gooseneck stand, a gooseneck stand for his cymbals over here. He's got a spring mount stand, which was also pretty prevalent starting in about the mid-20s. And he's got a set of tunable or tuned cowbells.
Cowbells, yeah.
Yep. He's got tack toms. And it was so funny because my videographer on all of the Back in Time videos is a local videographer and musician. And so he's kind of aware and of things and kind of helps me along when I'm doing my videos. It's like, are you sure you want to say that? It's like, no, you're right. I need to change that. So he's such a great partner in all of this. But he said he was, he and his 4-year-old daughter were watching movies one night to get ready for bed. And he called me up the next day. He says, hey, isn't he's got tack toms, doesn't he? Nope, he's got tack toms. And I go and try to find this clip online, and it's like, oh my gosh, yes, he does. Check all of this stuff out. It's awesome.
You know, he's got an Aquarian cymbal spring. That looks exactly like it.
I was going to say that.
It's got the yellow top.
Yeah. Everything that you think is new technology is old technology. So, let me get to this next guy. This guy,
Look at him. Oh,
he's got such a fantastic drum set to talk about. And what I want to mention here, first of all, you know, the drum set has expanded. Yeah. So he's got his snare drum here. He's got this big Chinese tom. He's got this one, and this one. If you look really closely, there's a hole in the head of this one.
Mm-hmm.
But the beautiful thing is this console set, you know, this console rail that everything is mounted on if it isn't mounted on the hoop. And although we can't see the bottom of this cymbal stand, I would imagine with 100% that it is a part of this console rail system. But it's the first time that we see height adjustment right there.
Mm-hmm.
And I shouldn't say the first time. It's the earliest image that I have in this presentation. That's
Kelly, that looks like a hi-hat stand.
He does have a hi-hat over
here. When did the hi-hat stand come about?
The high sock cymbal came about right around 1928, give or take.
28.
How long after that was before that was the low boy?
Just a few years. A patent was I think filed in 1924 for by Vic Burton, which is not to say that didn't exist before Vic Burton's patent. Right. He may have been just the first one to patent it. But the other thing that's really important to notice here, a couple of things, I guess, is first of all, look how chewed up his cymbal is. I mean, it's like you kept playing what you had.
Yeah.
You made it work, and also the fact that he's sitting on a chair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hadn't really been invented much at that time yet, so people were sitting on their snare drum cases or on tea crates or stools, piano stools that had that like the spinning piano stools, if you know what I'm talking about, where you can do the height adjustment just like our modern thrones can. And then of course he's got the trap table here.
That's so cool. Do we know his name?
I don't know his name. I'm sure he's somebody, but I just don't know his name offhand.
Sort of looks like Chick Webb a little bit.
Yeah.
Kind of, but I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah, probably earlier.
Yeah. So here we go. Pauline Brady from the International Sweethearts of Rhythm. And
cool name.
Yeah. It's with B's, not T's. And you see here, she's got that same trap table setup. Her, what had been Chinese toms have been replaced at this point by tack toms. So it's tunable on the top, but tacked on the bottom. So you have a little bit of control of what you're playing. And her cymbal stands, again, you see this, they are actually a part of the trap table.
Yeah.
So the bottom of the stand, the base of the stand goes through the trap table and is screwed on there. There's a little angle like right about here. So you can have a little bit of adjustment as to the rotation of those cymbals, or how close and how near they are to you, but it's not a really terrific system.
Yeah.
I like how she's choking the cymbal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah, she is. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a
Playing
huge
underneath
technique,
it, kind of like Buddy used
Yeah.
to on the hi-hat.
Yeah.
I don't know about you all, but I'm very particular about my setup and everything being at the right height and the right angle, and my seat being really comfortable. And this just makes me think, God, how uncomfortable it must have been to play these drums.
Yeah.
Oh,
absolutely.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah. So here we go into the mid 40s. We still see this console rail, and everything is attached to it, with the exception of possibly the snare drum. She's still on a stool here.
Yeah.
We also see that the angle here of that cymbal stand. Again, that's about the only adjustment you get. You adjust the height by moving it up or
Along the
down the
rail.
console, and again, we've got tack toms here, so the top head is tunable, the bottom head is not. And one of the most important features of this photo is to know that this was taken at the time of World War II, when the drum manufacturers were being asked by the War Department to please remove as much metal as you can from your drum sets. So all of these lugs are made of wood.
They are. I was just
Wow.
going to ask that.
Oh.
That is awesome.
And what a way for drum manufacturers to respond to the request,
Right.
and to figure out a way to make that happen. So it's an amazing bit of engineering. And Joe Meckler, who is a part of, or he's like the founder, the current founder, I guess, of or the current boss of the Delaware Drum Show. He specializes in this era of drums, so he's got a fantastic collection, very knowledgeable, and he would be able to tell you, he would be able to talk for a couple of hours probably on this photo alone. So
real quick, Kelly, on Facebook, David Betts asks, are both cymbals sizzles on the previous slide?
yes,
And that's kind of what I was looking at that and just saw the rivets in there. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So here we've got Kay Carlson. She, like Viola, had a 50-year career that people haven't heard enough about. She not only toured, she had like 2,000 students in the course of her career. Which is amazing.
She was in Los Angeles, right?
I think so.
You know what? I had a phone call in this morning to a friend of mine who I would be remiss if I didn't mention her, and she's a friend of Sam's as well, Michelle Mangione. And I used to write for Classic Drummer magazine when they were still around, and she tried to get me to do an interview with her, and I was going to go up and interview her, and she passed away.
Oh yeah, like 10 years ago.
Yeah, it was about, yes. I would have loved to have met her. That is outstanding.
Yeah. And what I love about this photos is, again, we see that everything is still connected to the counter hoop.
Yeah.
Right. And your height adjustment is how far down the counter hoop do you put your cymbal stand. But the first time that, at least in this series of photos, I'm not trying to say that this is the first time that they existed, but the first time that we're seeing them in this series of photos, that we've got tilter adjustments.
By those lugs, that looks like is that a Slingerland kit?
I don't know. She was a very early in the progression of women endorsement contract bearers from Ludwig.
What was her name again, Kelly?
Kay Carlson.
Kay Carlson. That's who it was. Yeah. Wow.
And I've got just one more image, I think. From 1959. And just think about this. This is the first time in this series of photos that we're seeing a cymbal stand actually go to the floor.
Yeah.
So, and she still has one mounted on her bass drum. And this is Claire Lane. She was, I believe she was a British drummer. I don't know much about her yet, but it's crazy. You can
so
see.
Cool.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
It's just
That was
crazy to
awesome.
see.
Woohoo! Woohoo!
Thanks. I mean, there are so many women drummers who have done so many things, and we just don't know about them. And that's just the fact. It's the way that it is. So,
Well,
they're
thank you
out there.
for doing what you've done and putting it out into the world for all of us to appreciate and honor, and really grateful for that, all that hard work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do you know when the book's going to be done about? I mean, do you have a target date you're going for? Or?
We're going for this year. It's last year we said we were also going for this year. So
That's Jim Royal. That's Jim Royal down there, by the way. Sorry, Kelly, I mean to interrupt you.
Ah, very good. Yeah, thank you. It's you know, we have been working on this, and the more photos that I see, that it's like, oh, this photo fills this niche, this fills this hole that I know that we have, just kind of having a memory of like virtually all of the photos. Every once in a while I'll flip through and just go, oh, when did I get that one? You know, but most of them I know, like you know, I've got images that have come from New Zealand, Australia, France, Germany, the Netherlands, England, Ireland, Canada, the US, I think Mexico, France. So images from all over the world of these drummers and the kinds of things that they do. And but just like I say, you know, having a memory of like, oh, you know what, I don't have a photo that shows that kind of thing. I picked one up from France or Italy a couple of months ago. And not that I went to Italy, it was shipped to me from Italy, but it's got this fantastic bass drum that is 4 inches wide. That's it. But it looks like it's a marching bass drum, so it's the craziest thing. I have to find out a little bit about that.
Kelly, have you ever? Sorry.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Kelly, have you ever thought about creating like a full-length documentary about all this? Because I mean, this is fascinating stuff, and I think would be of such great value to so many people in the drumming community. I'm imagining like a Ken Burns style documentary feature-length video about this stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know about that. I hadn't thought about it. It's as with anything, it's a matter of time and more importantly, funding. So you can find the time if you have the funding. But it's so tricky. And speaking actually of funding, so in 2020, I was awarded the Paul Cherish Independent Scholar Fellowship, which is such an honor. They give one of those away every year, and this past year it is me. And so I have a new Back in Time video that will be coming up again. It's like, where do you find the time when you're trying to write a book and where you're trying to do these, you know, follow up on a learning progressive rock, and making that happen. But there will be a new video that comes out with that, and I've been able to find some, you know, do my typical deep dive on this topic, which is completely under wraps to probably everybody but Adam Tevlin. And so, hi, Adam. Thank you so much for the inspiration.
Yeah, Adam, San Diego, man. Yeah,
absolutely. And I have found out some really amazing things that I didn't even know existed, and terminology I didn't know existed. And that's what I love so much about doing the deep dives on these little tiny, you know, just taking one isolated component and just, you know, digging into that. That's really rewarding for me, and then I get to share it with everybody else. So.
Well, we're so lucky, Kelly, because you know, you are preserving our culture and our history, and it's super important, and it's going to make every drummer more authentic, and it's just inspiring. I'm all fired up over here, and I just can't thank you enough for doing this. And I do encourage everybody to go and visit KelliRaeTubbs.com and your website to find all of these videos. And it's just always exciting. Like I always wonder what you're going to be doing next, and it's always exciting. And man, you're just the best, and we just all greatly appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
This has been awesome, Kelly. Thank you so much for taking the time. This is outstanding.
Thank you for asking me.
It's been a privilege, Kelly. Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Yes. And I want to do a quick little shout out. You're also a member of the Sabian Education Network, Kelly.
I'm a member of the Sabian Education Network and the D'Addario Education Collective.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I would love to see you on the Sabian Education Network forum one time, you know, in the future, perhaps with Dom and Joe Bergamini, and you know, and I know that you've been on several podcasts too. If you want to dig in deeper, I know you were on the Working Drummer podcast. No, I'm sorry, the Drum History podcast.
Yes,
That's it.
absolutely. Yeah.
Weren't you the
about
very
drum drummers.
first episode of that?
I was the very first episode. Yes. The Drum History podcast, who is hosted and created by the brain trust of Bart Vanderzee, who is awesome. And I was talking in that episode about the trap drummers and how their jobs disappeared at the onset of the talking movies. So
Yeah.
Well, Kelly, I can't wait for your book. I'm super excited to read it and check it all out when it comes out.
Yeah, me
it's gonna
too.
Be fun. It's gonna be so many pictures to interesting, like draw you in type of photos to really show what, you know, how the drum set has changed and what kind of struggles those players had. Oh my gosh, I'm so lucky that we are not in that era.
Yeah.
But
I think we'll all leave today feeling grateful for the gear that we have.
That's for sure, man. That's for sure.
As long as you understand that pretty much everything that's on your set right now was available 100 years ago, 120 years ago. It is not new technology. Double bass drum pedals are not new technology. Rack systems are not new technology. Just know that nothing is new. Even
it just got better.
Yeah. It's just better engineered. It's not made by hand so much. It's, you know, DW came out a couple of years ago. They showed it at the NAMM show. They had a new lowboy. Again, it's 100-year-old technology.
Going back full circle.
Yep.
Wow. Well, Kelly, when the book's out, we'd love to have you return.
Yeah.
And talk more. We really appreciate it. And hey, Chip, we're just glad you're feeling better. Everybody out there, Chip had COVID and he's recovered, and we are just grateful that you're back out. And
I'm glad to be here.
Round of applause to Chip, man. You're still recovering, and you're
it's
on.
Great to see you, Chip. It's great to see
Great
you,
to see you guys. And thank you so much, Kelly. I really learned a lot. I'm going to be investigating some of these drummers. I wrote down their names.
Oh, fantastic. Call me up and I will tell you who to look for.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Sure thing. Yeah, thanks again, guys, for inviting me. It's really nice to be a part of something and to be able to hear so many things, the other great presentations that you've done in this series of podcasts, live stream podcasts. It's wonderful. And I thank you guys for taking your time and making the investment in all of us.
Thank you.
You're the best, Kelly. Thanks.
Yeah,
well,
Kelly,
thanks for tuning in. Woohoo!
All right, we'll see you guys next week.
Everybody.
We'll see you guys next week.
Yes.
Bye. Bye.